That was John J. Murphy, and I come away inspired in several very specific ways. First of all, when we look at highly successful people, it's easy to think that they've just gone from strength to strength, from playing football at Notre Dame to having a corporate role to being able to move into being an influencer of thought and action. But the reality is that John said he grew up with a lot of self-doubt, with messages that were not positive messages. And from time to time over the course of his life, he has faced severe roadblocks and setbacks. And so despite that, he has found a way to encourage himself, and it started by reading. Think about how many of our guests have said that an influence from an audio book or a tape or a seminar or a thought or something they read made such a difference to them. In his case, it was Frank Gifford's amazing book, On Courage. I can remember when I was a young salesperson reading a book called Winners Never Quit by Phil Pepe. Winners never quit. We've all heard that phrase, winners never quit, quitters never win. But this was a story of athletes from a wide variety of fields who had overcome such incredible adversity. And for a young 18-year-old salesperson, it gave me that spark of extra encouragement to move forward. So despite self-doubt, he began to read and he began to study and began to learn. The second thing I took from that is he said that when we feel stress about a potential outcome, it's generally a projection of what we're feeling at that time, a projection of negatives. I've got an acquaintance that absolutely refuses to fly. And every time that there is a tragic plane crash, it's, of course, all over the news. And this simply emphasizes this person's fear of flying. It is a projection of negatives, and yet that's what creates that stress. Yet objectively, we know that flying is far safer than many other modes of transport on a statistical basis. But when our emotions hijack our logic, it's really easy for those negatives to start getting projected. So I'm inspired to remember that, and that stress is a projection of negatives. Am I feeling stress? Then what negatives am I projecting for the future? Third, John stressed action. When he talked about dealing with the aftermath of his divorce, how he got up, got some music, and started dancing. Action is so important. It's really the essence of what makes something optimism as opposed to just wishful thinking. A book I'd highly recommend to all of us is by Martin Seligman, professor at University of Pennsylvania. The book is called Learned Optimism. And the difference between the true optimist versus a person who just wishes things will turn out is the optimist has a good sense of what's going to occur because he or she can do something about it. There's something they can influence. And when we focus on what we can influence, even if it's small, then we gain a sense of optimism that can help us move forward. A fourth thing that I took from John is when he emphasized the importance of that we'll reap what we sow. It's a version of the law of attraction, that we reap what we sow. We're going to harvest exactly what we plant. If we want to grow roses, it doesn't make any sense to cut up potatoes and plant those. We're going to get potatoes. And so we need to sow the right thoughts, sow the right actions, sow the right service if we want to reap the good things. And as John said, whatever you throw out there, it's coming back. So let's make sure we throw out the right things. Such an important thing. And then finally, the way we start the day and how key that is. In John's case, it's by centering, by starting the day with positive intentions, and then seeing how things can be simplified. Coachability is a strong hallmark of John Murphy. I could tell that. He shared with me after the call that he's listened to a large number of these podcasts, certainly not for anything I'd have to say, but because of the things our guests have to say. And his quest for knowledge, his thirst for knowledge inspires me to continue making time for study, for reading, for listening, for thinking things through in such a positive way. So I hope you got as much out of this as I did. John Murphy was a phenomenal guest. Perhaps we'll have him on another time because he's got so many practical, good things to share. So remember, our whole purpose is to figure out how we can stay on track toward achieving the goals and vision that we have, avoiding mediocrity, and have an inspiration when we face those inevitable roadblocks and setbacks. All of you are facing roadblocks and setbacks, or you're not doing anything. I understand that. And so I admire you as a group for your willingness to keep moving forward one step at a time. Send those positive vibes out, and let's remember how important all of that is for the people around us too. So this is Dan Moore. Thanks for joining us in the Action Catalyst.